A heart unveiled. The glass walls of Kincaid Tower caught the last crimson rays of sunset as Olivia Barnes gathered her courage along with the financial reports. For 3 years, she had been the impeccable executive assistant to Dominic Kincaid, founder and CEO of Kincaid Innovations. 3 years of organizing his chaotic schedule, anticipating his needs before he voiced them, and ignoring the way her heart raced whenever he entered a room. "You're still here." Dominic's voice came from the doorway of his office, deep and tinged with surprise. At 38, he carried his success like armor: tailored suits, calculating blue eyes, and a reputation for being brilliantly ruthless. Olivia looked up, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "Just finishing the quarterly projections for tomorrow's board meeting. At 9 p.m. on a Friday?" He loosened his tie, a rare gesture that hinted at the exhaustion he never publicly acknowledged. "The board can wait. Go home, Olivia." But home was an empty apartment with walls that didn't hold the conversations she rehearsed in her mind. Home didn't have Dominic's presence, which had somehow become as necessary as oxygen. "Actually," she said, setting down the tablet, "I wanted to talk to you about something." Something shifted in his expression. A wariness, perhaps, that made her stomach tighten. He gestured toward the leather chairs by the window. "Of course." The city lights below twinkled like the stars obscured by urban glow. Olivia had practiced this speech countless times in the shower, during sleepless nights, in silent elevator rides. Yet now, with Dominic's full attention on her, words scattered like startled birds. "I've been thinking about my future," she began, carefully. "Are you resigning?" His question was sharp, immediate. "No, I mean, not exactly." Olivia took a deep breath. "I've come to realize something over these past few years working with you." Dominic's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Go on." "I've always prided myself on professionalism, on boundaries." The words tumbled out now, unstoppable. "But I can't pretend anymore. I've fallen in love with you, Dominic. Not with Dominic Kincaid, CEO, but with the man who brings coffee to the overnight security guard. The man who remembers everyone's birthdays but forgets his own." The silence that followed her confession was deafening. Dominic's expression remained perfectly still, a masterpiece of control. His eyes, usually so quick to analyze and decide, seemed fixed on some point beyond her. "I know this is inappropriate," Olivia continued, her voice growing smaller. "I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is complicated, but I couldn't keep it inside anymore. It was affecting my work, my life, everything." Outside, a helicopter passed, its searchlight briefly illuminating the office before plunging them back into the soft glow of desk lamps. Still, Dominic said nothing. The silence stretched like a chasm between them, widening with each passing second. In that void, Olivia saw everything she needed to know. The absence of words was its own answer. "I understand," she whispered, though he had given her nothing to understand. She stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "I'll have my resignation letter on your desk Monday morning." That finally broke his stillness. "Olivia." But she was already gathering her belongings, dignity the only thing she had left to hold on to. "Please don't. You've made your position clear." "I haven't said anything," he protested, rising to his feet. "Exactly." The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. "That says everything." Olivia walked out of his office with her head high, though her vision blurred with unshed tears. She took the elevator down 62 floors, each number ticking away another moment of the life she was leaving behind. By morning, she would be on a train heading north, away from Kincaid Tower and its silent king, away from the foolish dreams that had sustained her for too long. She would rebuild herself somewhere new, somewhere the echo of Dominic's silence. couldn't reach her. What she didn't know then was that silence had a way of traveling across distance, and that some echoes never truly fade. The beautiful aftermath. 18 months could change everything. Olivia discovered this truth as she walked along the shoreline of Port Haven, a small coastal town 300 miles north of the city she'd once called home. The morning breeze carried the scent of salt and possibilities, tousling her now shorter hair as she pushed the stroller along the boardwalk. "Mama! Seagull!" 15-month-old Theo pointed excitedly at the bird circling overhead, his blue eyes, so eerily like his father's, bright with wonder. "Yes, sweetheart. Seagulls." Olivia smiled, bending down to adjust his little jacket. "They're looking for breakfast just like we are." The local cafe, Tidewater, had become their Saturday morning ritual. The owner, Eleanor, waved from behind the counter as they entered. "There's my favorite little man. And his pretty mama, too." "Morning, Eleanor. Any chance that cranberry scone recipe is making an appearance today?" Olivia lifted Theo from his stroller, settling him in the high chair that Eleanor always kept ready. "Made a batch special, knowing you'd be in." Eleanor winked, sliding a plate toward them. "How's the gallery prep coming along?" After arriving in Port Haven with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart, Olivia had discovered an unexpected talent for photography. What began as therapy, capturing the raw beauty of coastline storms and peaceful dawns, had evolved into a career. Next week would mark the opening of her first solo exhibition at the local arts center. Final prints are being framed. I'm terrified and thrilled in equal measure. Olivia broke off a piece of scone for Theo, who grabbed it with pudgy fingers. "You'll be magnificent," Eleanor assured her. "The whole town's talking about it. Your work captures something special about this place." What Eleanor didn't say, but both women knew, was that Olivia's photographs also captured something of her journey. The devastation of heartbreak giving way to rebuilding, storm clouds breaking, to reveal unexpected light. When Olivia had discovered her pregnancy 2 weeks after leaving Kincaid Innovations, her first instinct had been panic. Then came resolve. She would raise this child on her own, giving them everything that truly mattered: love, security, and presence. The things that Dominic, for all his billions, had been unable to give her. She never contacted him about the pregnancy. His silence that night had been definitive, and she refused to be someone's obligation. Instead, she'd found this little town, rented a cottage overlooking the bay, and started over. "Did I tell you?" Eleanor lowered her voice conspiratorially. "The Arts Foundation from the city is sending a representative to your opening. Apparently, they fund promising artists from small communities. Could mean big things, Olivia." A flutter of anxiety mixed with excitement in her chest. "I hadn't heard. That's intimidating." "It's deserved," Eleanor insisted. "Now drink your coffee before this little gentleman decides to redecorate my cafe with his breakfast." Later that afternoon, as Theo napped in his crib, Olivia stood in the makeshift studio she'd created in what was once a sunroom. Her photographs lined the walls, moody seascapes, weathered fishermen with stories etched in their faces, and a series of Theo's first year that chronicled not just his growth, but her own. Her phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte, the gallery owner who had taken a chance on her work. "Just confirmed. Kincaid Foundation sending rep to opening. Their patronage could change everything. Wear something fabulous. XC." Olivia stared at the message, blood rushing in her ears. Kincaid Foundation. It had to be coincidence. The foundation funded arts initiatives nationwide. She'd known this even during her time at the company. There was no reason to believe Dominic himself would be involved. Still, her hands trembled as she set down the phone. She walked to the window that faced the ocean, watching waves crash against rocks in an endless cycle of destruction and renewal. In her darkest moments after leaving, She'd imagined scenarios where Dominic realized his mistake, where he came after her. But those fantasies had faded as her belly grew, as she felt her son's first kicks, as she held him in her arms and realized that what she'd found was far greater than what she'd lost. She glanced at the photograph on her desk. Theo on his first birthday, face covered in cake frosting, laughing. He had her smile, her dimples, her auburn hair. But those eyes, those piercing blue eyes that sometimes looked at her with an intensity that stole her breath, those belonged to a man who had never known of his existence. "We're going to be fine," she whispered to the sleeping house. "We've always been fine without him." But as the week progressed and the gallery opening drew closer, Olivia found herself standing longer in front of the mirror, wondering if Dominic would recognize her if their paths ever crossed again, wondering if he'd see himself in their son's face, wondering if the silence between them would finally find its voice. The night before the exhibition, after tucking Theo into bed, she took out the one thing she'd kept from her old life, a small silver paperweight Dominic had given her after their first year working together. "For keeping everything grounded when chaos strikes," he'd said. Olivia turned it over in her palm, feeling its cool weight. Tomorrow would be about her art, her achievement, her new life. Whatever ghosts from the past might appear, she was no longer the woman who had walked out of Kincaid Tower with a broken heart. She was stronger now. She was a mother. She was whole, and no silence, past or future, could take that away from her. Fortune's reunion. The Port Haven Art Center had transformed for the evening. Its usually modest gallery space now glowing with strategic lighting that highlighted the raw emotion captured in Olivia's photographs. Local residents mingled with visitors from neighboring towns, their conversations creating a pleasant hum beneath the soft jazz played by a trio in the corner. "You've outdone yourself," Charlotte whispered, appearing at Olivia's side with 2 glasses of champagne. 3 pieces already sold, and we're only an hour in." Olivia accepted the glass gratefully, though her stomach was too knotted to drink. "I still can't believe this is happening." She wore a simple emerald dress that complemented her auburn hair, now styled in loose waves around her shoulders. "Believe it. You're talented, and finally someone besides me is noticing." Charlotte nodded toward a group near the largest photograph, a dramatic shot of a lighthouse standing firm against a violent storm. "That's the Kincaid Foundation representative. Should I introduce you?" Olivia followed Charlotte's gaze, expecting to see some anonymous arts administrator. Instead, her glass nearly slipped from her fingers. Standing with his back to her, his posture unmistakable even after 18 months, was Dominic Kincaid himself. "Olivia, you've gone white." Charlotte touched her arm. "Are you all right?" I need a minute." She thrust the champagne back into Charlotte's hand and retreated to the small office behind the gallery, her heart hammering against her ribs. This couldn't be happening. Dominic never attended these events personally. The foundation had administrators, arts directors, people specifically employed to scout new talent. Why was he here? Had he known? Was this deliberate? A soft knock at the door interrupted her spiral of questions. "Olivia?" Charlotte peeked in. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Kincaid is asking to meet the artist. I told him you were momentarily indisposed, but it's fine." Olivia took a deep breath, smoothing her dress. "I'll come out." "Do you know him?" Charlotte asked, curiosity evident in her voice. "I used to work for him," Olivia replied simply. "A lifetime ago." When she re-entered the gallery, Dominic stood before her series titled First Light, intimate portraits of Theo's early mornings by the sea. He turned as she approached, and for a moment, neither spoke. He looked both exactly the same and somehow different. Still impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, still imposingly tall. But there were new lines at the corners of his eyes. A weariness, That hadn't been there before. Olivia. Her name on his lips after so long felt like a spell being broken. Your work is extraordinary. Thank you. She kept her voice professional, distant. The Kincaid Foundation doesn't usually send its CEO to small-town gallery openings. I've been more involved in the foundation lately. His eyes hadn't left her face. A change in priorities. The unspoken history between them seemed to press in from all sides. Olivia was acutely aware of the other guests, of Charlotte watching. Curiously from across the room, of the ticking clock that counted down to the moment Dominic would inevitably see. "Mama!" The excited voice cut through the gallery's murmur. Mrs. Winters, Olivia's elderly neighbor who had offered to watch Theo for the evening, appeared at the entrance with a squirming toddler in her arms. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," Mrs. Winters said, making her way toward them. "He woke up crying for you and wouldn't settle. I thought perhaps just seeing you might help." Olivia moved automatically, taking Theo from Mrs. Winters's arms. "It's okay, sweetie. Mama's right here." She kissed his forehead, momentarily forgetting Dominic's presence until she felt the weight of his stunned silence. When she turned back, Dominic was staring at Theo with an expression she had never seen on his face. Shock, recognition, and something that looked almost like fear. Theo, rubbing sleep from his eyes, looked curiously at the stranger. Then, with the unfiltered directness of a child, he pointed at Dominic's silk tie. Blue, like eyes. The gallery seemed to disappear around them, narrowing to just the three of them in a bubble of suspended time. Dominic's gaze moved from Theo to Olivia, questions forming that he couldn't seem to voice. "Mrs. Winters, would you mind taking Theo to get some water?" Olivia asked quietly. "I'll be there in a moment." As Mrs. Winters led Theo away, Dominic took a step closer. "How old is he?" His voice was barely audible. 15 months. Olivia met his gaze steadily. 15 months. He repeated the words slowly, the calculation visible in his eyes. "And his father?" "Isn't in the picture." She maintained her composure through sheer will. "If you'll excuse me, I should see to my son." "Olivia." Dominic caught her arm as she turned to leave, his touch sending an unwelcome jolt through her. "Is he mine?" The directness of the question, asked in the middle of her triumph, her new beginning, sparked anger she thought she'd long since processed. "Now you want to talk?" she whispered fiercely. "After 18 months of silence? Answer me, please." The plea in his voice was so unlike him that it momentarily disarmed her. "This isn't the time or place for this conversation." She glanced meaningfully at the curious onlookers, pretending not to watch them. "When then? Where?" His intensity hadn't changed. Once fixed on a goal, Dominic Kincaid was relentless. "I'm staying at the Harbor Inn. Have breakfast with me tomorrow. Please, Olivia." She wanted to refuse, to tell him he'd lost the right to make demands when he'd let her walk away. But Theo deserved better than a scene at her gallery opening, and this confrontation had been inevitable from the moment she'd seen those blue eyes looking up at her from the hospital bassinet. 9 o'clock. The Tidewater Cafe on the boardwalk. She pulled her arm from his grasp. "Don't be late." She walked away before he could respond, joining Mrs. Winters and Theo near the refreshments table. When she glanced back, Dominic was still watching them, his expression unreadable from a distance. Charlotte appeared at her side, eyes wide with curiosity. "So that's your mysterious past, Dominic Kincaid?" She whistled low. "And is he—" "Tomorrow's going to be interesting," Olivia said, avoiding the question as she stroked Theo's hair. "Very interesting indeed." Truth and reconciliation. The Tidewater Cafe was nearly empty at 9 on Sunday morning. Eleanor raised an eyebrow when Olivia arrived without Theo, but asked no questions as she brought over a pot of coffee. Olivia had asked Mrs. Winters to watch him again. This conversation needed to happen without those innocent blue eyes witnessing whatever storm might brew. Dominic arrived precisely on time, dressed more casually than she'd ever seen him in dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater. That somehow made him look more approachable and yet no less formidable. He spotted her in the window booth and hesitated for just a moment before walking over. "Good morning," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Olivia pushed a mug toward him. "I remembered how you take it. Black, no sugar." A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "You always remembered everything." Eleanor approached with menus, introducing herself with the warmth she showed all customers. "Friend of Olivia's?" she asked Dominic. Before he could answer, Olivia interjected. "Eleanor, this is Dominic Kincaid. He's—" She paused, unsure how to define him. "Theo's father." Understanding dawned in Eleanor's eyes. To her credit, she simply nodded. "Well, first time's on the house then. What can I get you both?" After they ordered, silence settled between them like an uninvited guest. Olivia stirred her coffee, gathering courage for the conversation ahead. To her surprise, Dominic spoke first. "He has my eyes," he said quietly. "I saw it immediately, and my smile. My stubbornness, too." Olivia looked up at him. "But you didn't come here to discuss genetic inheritance. Why didn't you tell me?" The question held no accusation, only a profound bewilderment that caught her off guard. "You made your feelings clear that night, Dominic. Your silence was answer enough." He flinched as if she'd struck him. "Is that what you thought? That I didn't care?" What was I supposed to think? The hurt she'd buried resurfaced, hot and unexpected. "I bared my soul to you and you said nothing. Absolutely nothing." Dominic ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd seen countless times during difficult negotiations. "I was caught completely off guard. I never imagined—" He stopped, recalibrating. "When you left, I tried to call you the next day. Your number was disconnected. I changed it. I needed a clean break. I looked for you," he admitted. "But you'd covered your tracks well. New bank, new email, nothing forwarded." This revelation surprised her. "You looked for me?" "For months." His eyes held hers. "I hired private investigators. They found nothing. It was as if you'd vanished." Olivia hadn't realized how thorough her disappearance had been. After years of organizing Dominic's life, she'd known exactly how to disappear from it. "What would you have said if you'd found me?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Before you knew about Theo?" Dominic's gaze dropped to his coffee. "I would have apologized for my cowardice. I would have explained why I couldn't speak that night." He looked up again. "I would have told you that I've been in love with you for years, but was too afraid to act on it." The confession hung in the air between them. Eleanor arrived with their food, providing a momentary reprieve from the intensity of his words. When they were alone again, Olivia found her voice. "Afraid? You? The man who built an empire from nothing, who stares down business rivals without blinking?" "That's different." Dominic pushed his plate aside, untouched. "I built walls around myself after my parents died. Success became my shield. The company was safe. It couldn't leave me. Couldn't die suddenly in a car crash when I was 16. Olivia had known about his parents' death, but he'd never spoken of it with such raw vulnerability. "When you told me you loved me," he continued, "everything I'd built to protect myself was suddenly threatened. I wanted to respond, but the words wouldn't come. And then you were gone, and the walls felt more like a prison than protection." His honesty disarmed her. For years, she'd imagined his silence as rejection, when perhaps it had been fear, the same fear that had kept her from telling him about their child. "I had a right to know about my son," he said quietly. "You did," Olivia acknowledged. I was wrong to keep him from you. But I was protecting myself too, Dominic. And him. Protecting him from what? From me? From being an obligation. From being a bargaining chip. She met his gaze steadily. I didn't want you in his life out of duty or guilt. And now? He asked. The question weighted with unspoken implications. Now, Olivia sighed. Now I think he deserves to know his father. If that's what you want. It is. His response was immediate. More than anything. They spent the next hour negotiating. The beginnings of a co-parenting relationship. Dominic would stay in Port Haven for 2 weeks, spending time with Theo gradually, allowing the boy to become comfortable with him. After that, they would establish regular visits. It was surreal, discussing visitation schedules and childhood, allergies with the man who once couldn't respond to her declaration of love. As they prepared to leave, Dominic hesitated. There's something else I need to tell you. I'm not just here because of the foundation. I bought the old Westerly property on the north side of town 6 months ago. Olivia stared at him in confusion. The abandoned resort? Why? I was looking for a place to escape, somewhere not associated with the company or my past. A wry smile touched his lips. I never imagined I'd find you here, or that I had a son waiting. Outside the cafe, the morning sun gleamed on the water. They walked in silence along the boardwalk, the space between them filled with 18 months of absence and the beginning of something neither had anticipated. Would you like to meet him properly? Olivia finally asked. Today, I mean. We usually go to the park after his nap. Relief and nervousness warred on Dominic's face. I'd like that very much. As they continued walking, their hands brushed accidentally. Neither pulled away immediately, and in that brief contact was the spark of something neither had extinguished completely, something that had survived silence, distance, and the passage of time. I don't expect anything from you, Olivia, Dominic said as they reached her cottage. Not forgiveness, not love, just the chance to know my son. And perhaps, someday, the chance to earn back your trust. Olivia looked at the man she had once loved in silence, the father of her child, the person who had both broken and inadvertently rebuilt her. One step at a time, she said softly. We've got a lot of silence to fill. Beyond the silence. 6 months passed like the changing tides, sometimes gentle, sometimes tumultuous, but constantly in motion. Winter had settled over Port Haven, wrapping the small coastal town in a blanket of pristine snow that transformed the familiar landscape into something magical and new. Olivia watched from her porch as Dominic helped Theo build a snowman in the front yard of her cottage. Their son's delighted giggles floated through the crisp air as Dominic lifted him to place a carrot nose on their creation. The domesticity of the scene still felt surreal sometimes. This man who once commanded boardrooms now fully engrossed in the serious business of perfect snowman construction. Hot chocolate delivery, she called, stepping outside with 2 steaming mugs and a sippy cup of warm milk. Look, Mama, Theo pointed excitedly at their lopsided snowman. Me and Daddy made him big. He's magnificent, Olivia agreed, handing Dominic his mug. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, a simple touch that still carried a current of unresolved feelings. The past months had unfolded in careful stages. After those first tentative meetings in the park, Dominic had quickly become a fixture in Theo's life. He'd extended his stay in Port Haven indefinitely, managing Kincaid Innovations remotely from the renovated Westerly property, which was slowly transforming into both a luxury boutique hotel and his personal residence. For Theo's sake, they had found a rhythm of co-parenting that worked. Sunday brunches together, shared responsibilities, and the gradual building of trust. For their own sake, they had maintained careful boundaries, neither rushing toward nor completely dismissing the complicated emotions that still simmered beneath the surface. "The hotel's first wing will be ready for guests by spring," Dominic said as they watched Theo play with the snowman's stick arms. "The foundation wants to use it for an artist's retreat. I thought you might help select the photographers for the inaugural program." Olivia smiled at the offer. Her career had flourished since the gallery opening, with exhibitions now scheduled in 3 major cities. The Kincaid Foundation had purchased her entire First Light series for permanent installation in children's hospitals across the country. "I'd like that," she replied, "though I might be biased toward moody seascapes." "Biased is fine. It's your vision I trust." There was a weight to his words that went beyond professional admiration. Later that evening, after Theo had been tucked into bed with stories and kisses from both parents, Olivia found Dominic standing at the living room window, watching the snow fall in the glow of the porch light. "He asked me something today," Dominic said without turning. "He wanted to know why I don't live in our house like his friend Jamie's daddy does." Olivia's heart quickened. They had avoided this conversation for months, focusing instead on building a stable environment for Theo. "What did you tell him?"